Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Amritabindu Upanishad, as the very name indicates, it's a drop of nectar. A drop of nectar. So very nice title it is. It doesn't say that it's an ocean of nectar. Amrita Bindu, a drop of nectar, signifying that even a drop is enough for us to realize our true nature. There are 5 Bindu Upanishad. This is from Atharvana Veda. There are 5 Bindu Upanishads. Amrita Bindu Upanishad is one of them. Nada Bindu Upanishad, Brahma Bindu Upanishad, Tejo Bindu Upanishad, and Dhyana Bindu Upanishad. Now that is as far as the information is concerned. So I've with that fundamental introduction information, let's dive into the topic of the nature of the mind. The double-edged nature of the mind is titled signifies that mind is both a cause for bondage as well as the tool for liberation. How it can be so, Amritabindu Upanishad discusses in detail what is the nature of the mind and how it can be used for our sadhana to overcome our limitations or to overcome our lower tendencies. How many types of minds are there? I've opened up. I would like to have this as a discussion. What are the types of minds that one can think of that we can see here? Anybody would like to share?
I mean, one can say numerous levels or numerous what do you call characteristics of mind, but normally they are classified as conscious mind, subconscious mind, and superconscious mind.
Conscious mind, subconscious mind, superconscious mind. Thank you, Janki Ram. That's very nice. Okay. So, anybody else? Anybody else?
The nature of the mind is it wants to hold on to something all the time. Something or the other.
Hold on to something of the mind. So, which mind are we talking of? So, types of which type of mind?
That is the conscious mind.
Conscious mind. So, conscious mind and conscious mind. Conscious minds want to hold on to some objects. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, and second nature is that it is jumpy. It moves from one place to the other. It is always jumping like a monkey. So
jumping.
Yeah, that's the nature of the mind. That it is not in one fixed place. It is always distracted.
Okay. Okay. It is always distracted. It jumps from one place to another.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As said in Gita, it is like a wind.
Yeah, it always wants something to lean on to.
It is not independent. It is dependent. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Prashant. Thank you. Anybody else?
Mind is an ensemble of thoughts.
Mind is an ensemble of thoughts.
It's a material.
Yeah.
It's a material. It's a material. It changes every instant of time, and it's just a material. A combination of it with triggers, it will form its own patterns.
Thank you, Srinivas Rao. Anybody else?
Yeah, just the same point. It is just a bundle of thoughts. There is no mind as such.
So, let's see what Amritabindu Upanishad says about the nature of the mind. So, with all the different types of mind classification according to psychologists and scientists, in the modern age, Amritabindu Upanishad goes into the fundamental class of the mind. Pure mind and an impure mind. So, what do we mean? What is meant by a pure mind? So, the shloka itself says very nicely, Manohi dvividham prokta shuddham cha ashuddham eva cha. Ashuddham kama sankalpam shuddham kama varjitam. That's the very first shloka of Amritabindu Upanishad. So the sage of the Upanishad is saying that there are only two types of minds. Manohi dvividham prokta. Mind is known to be only of two types. Shuddham cha ashuddham eva cha. So Shuddham is a pure mind. Ashuddham is an impure mind. Now the question comes, very interesting question. What do we mean by pure mind and what do we mean by impure mind? Isn't it? So we can say, pure mind is a lot of negative emotions. I mean, impure mind. Pure mind is a lot of love, compassion, kindness, all of it. But very interesting definition, according to the very first shloka, the second line of the shloka in Amritabindu Upanishad says, Ashuddham kama sankalpam. That means the one that is attached to the desires is an impure mind. Shuddham kama varjitam. The mind that is free from the attachment of desires is a pure mind. So any mind that has desire in it is an impure mind. And any mind that is free from desire is in fact a pure mind. Now let's explore this further. This may seem very, very rudimentary, very, very crude, but in fact it is very subtle as far as the sadhana of a seeker is concerned. How to use the faculties available at our disposal. How each one of us can use the faculty, the body, mind, and intellect, especially the mind, to understand the nature of the mind and use it as a tool for liberation. If we don't understand the mind properly, if we misunderstand the mind, then it can be a cause for bondage, a very, very tough cause for bondage, very difficult to free ourselves from the mind. So basically, when the mind has desires, it has a series of thoughts. There are peaks and troughs. There are peaks and valleys. So sometimes the mind will be excited. Sometimes the mind will be stable, calm, at a base, kind of easy going. So What does Yoga Shastra, Patanjali Yoga Shastras do? Patanjali Yoga Shastras talk about um, mind as a bundle of thoughts, and what is the principle of Patanjali's Yoga Shastra? It is the well-known aphorism, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Now, Patanjali considers all vrittis, all modifications of the mind, which means all thoughts, as a major cause for suffering. That's why the very second shloka says Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. The main aim of yoga is to subdue the modifications of the mind. ಚಿತ್ತದ ವೃತ್ತಿಯನ್ನ ಶಮನ ಮಾಡೋದೇ ಯೋಗದ ಒಂದು ಉದ್ದೇಶ. But he goes on to, very interestingly, even Patanjali goes on to describe the mind, the nature of the mind, and he says that the mind is again only of two categories. In the 5th shloka of Yoga Sutras, Patanjali Yoga Sutras, he says, Vrittaya Panchatayah Klishta Klishtaha. Fundamentally, the mind is only of two types, Klishta, Aklishta, the painful and not painful type. And overall, these two types are characterized by five characteristics. What are those five characteristics? Patanjali says in the subsequent next shloka, the 6th one, Pramana Viparyaya Vikalpa Nidra Smrutayaha. Very short aphorism. Now, the mind can be characterized by pramana, the right knowledge or perception, viparyaya, the erroneous or wrong knowledge, vikalpa. Vikalpa is fancy or imagination, smriti, memory, and nidra, sleep, 5 qualities. Right knowledge, erroneous knowledge or wrong knowledge, second one. Third one is imagination. Fourth one is memory. And fifth one is sleep. Now remember, Patanjali is talking about these 5 qualities of the mind as a result of vrittis. That means as a result of modifications. That means the effect of thoughts that change, that move, invariably results in these 5 characteristics of the mind. Not all modifications of the thoughts are useless. For example, pramana, the right knowledge, is gained by the right kind of thought and the right kind of sense perception. The right kind of thought being generated by the sense perception. There is a movement of thought in the mind for a knowledge to come about. So the movement of thought in itself is not a problem, but it can be painful, it can be not painful. When the outcome of this thought is a favorable outcome according to what the mind has thought, it is not painful. It is a joyous outcome. When the outcome of this thinking is not according to what has been planned or thought of as the fine, with the mind, if it results in an unfavorable condition to this body and mind, it will become a painful mind. Most of the times, practically all the time in our experience, we have had a mixture of these experiences, painful and not painful. joy and suffering. Only two kinds. The grades of joy, the grades of suffering may vary, but the mind results in only two types of experiences: joy and suffering. So, when we say there is a movement of thought and it results in five qualities characterized by the mind, pramana and viparyaya, see how interestingly Sage Patanjali has classified these five categories. Pramana and viparyaya, right knowledge and erroneous knowledge, are based on the sense organs coming in contact with external objects, basically arising from sense perception. The other two, vikalpa and viparyaya, vikalpa and smriti, arise from actually contact with the mental objects. That means thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And the last one, sleep, nidra, comes about by no contact with either the external object, physical object, or the mental objects, subtle objects. Such very interesting classification, you see. Let's take a quick look at it. Pramana is right knowledge. I see something, my eyes see something, my ears hear something, or my nose smells something. I know if it's a ginger tea that's cooking in the kitchen, I can smell ginger and tea. So immediately my mind recognizes it as ginger tea smell happening. So what is right knowledge? Any knowledge that comes about in the mind that coincides with the object of perception, that synchronizes with the object of perception, is right knowledge. What is wrong knowledge then? What is wrong knowledge? Wrong knowledge is actually the false perception of an object, mistaken perception of an object whose real form does not correspond to the mistaken conception. For example, if we see a water at a distance on the road on a hot mid-morning, then we think there is water there. We all know from science it is a mirage. So what we see as a sense perception that is there and what the mind cognizes are not in tune, are not synchronized. So it's an illusory, false image that is created in the mind. Where there is no water, there is image of the water created in the mind. So that's actually false viparyaya, or the definition that Patanjali gives of viparyaya is viparyayo mithya jnanam atad rupa pratishtitham. That knowledge which does not coincide with the real form that is seen. That is, the object is there, but it is mistaken. It is different from fancy or imagination. This one we must be clear. We don't imagine a mirage. We experience a mirage. Fancy or imagination is completely a characteristic of a mind that happens within the mind without the sense object contact. This one we must remember clearly. For example, I imagine I'm a king right now. There is no truth to it, there is no basis to it in in any of the experience or the sense object perception. Suppose I see an object that is not there, then I am fancying it. I'm imagining it. So that is imagination. Whereas wrong knowledge is that there is a sense contact with an object, but the mind is mistaking it to be something else. So the movement of thought or vrittis can result in right knowledge or wrong knowledge, erroneous knowledge. At the same time, it can, these two, right knowledge and wrong knowledge, are actually associations of the sense organs with the external objects. Now, the right knowledge can come about by actually three things. And this is what the whole science is based on. Pratyaksha anumana agamaha pramanani. What is pramana or right knowledge? Pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means the knowledge got about by the senses, by the contact of the sense organs, sensory perceptions. Anumana, logical deduction or inference. Agama, or testimony by a trusted source. That is pramana. Isn't this the basis of all scientific knowledge? I have to either rely on my senses, or if my senses are, even if I use a microscope or a telescope, I ultimately have to rely on my eyes, that is seeing through the microscope, to determine what is being seen. Right? So pratyaksha, aksha means senses, eyes in particular, but as a generic term, aksha means senses. So pramana or right knowledge is based on sense perception, anumana, inference. I don't see it through my senses, but I can infer by some of the experience that has come about. It is cloudy today, so it might rain. It is dark today. It's not very bright. Sun is not come out, so it's cloudy. It might rain. That's an inference. So typically that is an inference. Then agama, I might not be able to directly experience from my senses, nor can I probably, the field of knowledge may be within the purview of my inference, the mental faculty to infer based on certain inputs, direct inputs, but I can trust the source who has stated so. And typically that is given by, that is usually given by anybody. For example, if I have not gone to Kashmir, or if I have not gone to Rameshwaram, I have not seen it. My wife has gone there. She comes after the trip and describes how Rameshwaram is. I trust her because she's a known source of information. In fact, all science and engineering which we study is based on this trusted source in the education system. Why? Because all textbooks are considered to be truthful because it's come from a trusted source. People who have read, understood, and experimented any of these scientific postulates that are stated in books and journals. I myself have not experienced it. I myself have not experimented on Ohm's law or electrical engineering. But when it comes from my professor, a trusted source in electrical engineering, I it becomes an agama, a testimony, a trusted source. And that's where the traditional temple design comes from, Agama Shastra. Because people who have looked at various energy patterns have put it together in the form of a scripture or a text called Agama Shastra. Agama simply means a tested source. What else can be there as a scientific knowledge or a means of knowledge other than these three? Sense perceptions, cognition or inference, or a testimony by a trusted source. Is there any other means of knowledge? Patanjali has already told this several thousands of years back, and I'm sure this holds good even today. Imagination is conjured up, image conjured up by words without any substance behind it is fancy. That means it's totally a mental preoccupation. The mind starts building up an image on its own without any stuff behind it. Without any stuff means without reality behind it, and that is called imagination or fancy. Now, what is memory according to Yoga Sutra? Memory, traditionally, conventionally, what is memory thought of? Any idea?
Can you hear me now? The computer, we store information and then retrieve it.
Okay. Can you?
Computer, we store the information and then retrieve it, like in a hardware.
Okay. So computer memory, basically a placeholder for information and recollection.
Correct.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Janaki Ramji. Any other input?
Storehouse. Hello.
Yes.
Storehouse of events.
Storehouse of events. Yes.
Past events.
Past events. Okay. All right. Very, very good. Very true. So, storehouse of past events, a placeholder for storing information and recalling it later for a specific purpose. Now, both of these are true. But Patanjali goes to the foundation of these two and all other things. He says memory is not allowing that which is experienced to escape. Every experience, what is the nature of any experience?
So remembering the past things and keeping it in the mind and we are memorizing it is also a memory.
Correct. So remembering past things, and we say memorizing our studies or our lessons in our school, right? So keeping the information intact is without allowing it to go is also memory. Now, every experience, but psychologically, every experience, if we notice its nature, it comes and goes. Every experience that comes goes, and any experience that goes may come back later again. So the coming and going and coming is an inherent nature of thought and experience. No experience ever stays permanently. Even ill health, even the so-called chronic diseases, the experience of the chronic disease is never constant or the same always throughout the day. So whether joy comes and goes, sorrow comes and goes. So experiences come and go. Now, what Patanjali is saying here is, what is memory? That which has been experienced is not allowed to escape. It's been bolted and kept in our heart, in the recesses of our mind. And modern psychology calls it unconscious mind, subconscious mind, the layers of the mind where impressions are stored and kept. Whether it's data or emotions, all of that data also has a meaning only when it's translated as experience. Emotions also, only as it is related to us as we experience it, has a meaning. So these experiences are time bound, they come and go. But memory is that, according to what Patanjali says, not allowing that which is experienced to escape. If we just allow it, that experience will escape. It has no locus. It has no ashraya. It has no place to stay unless I hold it and keep it in my house. What is the house for my emotions? My own mind and heart. So that's why Patanjali has a very interesting definition on memory. Memory is not allowing that which is experienced to escape. Now, sleep is also, according to Patanjali, the fifth one, sleep is also a modification of the mind. What Patanjali says is modification of the mind based on absence of any content is sleep. Modification of the mind based on objects is knowledge, right knowledge or wrong knowledge. Modification of the mind based on internal objects is either fancy or memory. And modification of the mind based on no content is sleep. Such a very interesting definition, right? There are two types of mind, pure and impure. That which has desires, mind filled with desires, is an impure mind. Mind free from desires is a pure mind. Now, going by this fundamental reasoning, Amritabindu Upanishad takes the next step. It says, Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. That very mind for the human being, manushyanam, is a cause, karanam bandha mokshayoho, cause for bondage or liberation. This is a famous statement that we have all heard many times on many occasions. We might have even read it. This is the third shloka. This is the second shloka, very second shloka in Amritabindu Upanishad. But the second line is also interesting. What causes bondage and what causes liberation? When is the mind the cause for bondage? And when is the same mind the tool for liberation? Bandhaya vishayasaktam muktyai nirvishayam smrutam. When the mind is attached, has the desire for vishaya objects, it becomes a bondage. Bandhaya vishayasaktam. It is the mind turns into a suffering or a bondage, cause for suffering or a bondage, when it orients or when it gets attached to the objects, when it gets intensely interested in objects or desires. Muktyai nirvishayam mama. Muktyai, it becomes a tool for liberation, or it itself is liberated when it is free from desires. Nirvishayam smrutam. That very mind, if it becomes nirvishayam, if it becomes free from the attachment of the desires to the desires, then it becomes a liberated one. So the mind itself becomes limited, or the individual, the vyakti or the jivatma, when it gets attached to the desires or the sense objects. When it detaches from the sense objects, the mind realizes it is consciousness. The very mind realizes it is consciousness. When it understands, I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the intellect. When it understands, I am Shivoham, I am Shiva, pure consciousness, that very mind is infinite, Brahman. So mind is right at the center. When it leans on one side towards the objects, it becomes the body mind and therefore limited and suffering. When it just understands and recognizes I am not the body, and detaches from the body, the desires, and realizes that it is consciousness, it becomes infinite, supreme. So in reality, there is no such thing as a mind as an independent entity. It's an outcome or a natural consequence of the objectification of consciousness, which is actually not an object. But during the process of manifestation, the formless objects appears as a form, and therefore mind thinks that it is the form. The mind is born and it thinks it is a form. Then the next question comes, if the mind understands or it just detaches from the desires temporarily, is that enough? What is the next step that the mind has to undertake? Many times, in our everyday experience, we have a flash, an intuitive flash of the truth, our true nature. But then the mind, it does not actually sustain. It is not sustained. We immediately get back to our own person, human being, human type of ways and living. Why so? The mind must be well trained. The training must continue. The training must continue for an ardent seeker. We cannot stop at the first realization of the removal of desire from the mind. The journey must continue. The mind must continue to be trained, because otherwise what happens, just like the car, when we apply the brakes, the car will continue to move due to its inertia before it comes to a standstill. Old habits that reside in the mind will continue to operate and pull the mind back into old ways of behavior, though the mind has realized in flashes the truth due to detachment from desires, due to unattached desires. So he says, after the mind has yato nirvishayam yasya manaso muktirishyate, having been unattached to desires, the mind becomes liberated, muktir. Ato nirvishayam nityam manaha karyam mumukshuno. That means the practice of freeing oneself from the mind from the sense object must be practiced nityam every day. By whom? By the one who is interested in liberation, mumukshuno. By the one who is a mumukshu, because if you're just relying on an experience, then okay, you will get a fancy experience, an enlightening experience, an exhilarating experience. But if we are truly interested in liberation, if we are a mumukshu, then that one experience, the mind must be trained and retrained regularly to free itself from the sense objects, the activity of freeing itself from the sense objects. Now, this is a very normal thing even in our profession. Even in our who do we call a person who is experienced in any particular field? A person who has actually gone ahead and practiced a particular skill again and again regularly. So therefore, real change, an implication of this statement is the real change comes about by regular, repeated practice of any skill, any knowledge, any technique, not just a one-time burst. This is what is the implication here. I might do a lot of sadhana one day and then relax and be out of it for the next 1 month, and then again I might get motivated and come back. Now, even psychologists say small actions every day will bring about more change than a burst of irregular actions. So this is the importance of actually practicing regularly detachment from sense objects by the mind. The reason is very simple. Because of old habits, old tendencies, the mind tends to get back to old ways, the previous ways. Even after the light, even after the knowledge of awareness or the direct experience of awareness that one has as a flash due to a sudden expansion of the mind. Therefore, one must actually continue to practice this. I'll pause here for any inputs or any sharing. Does anyone have anything to share?
No, only input is, it is clear, but for lay people or common people like us, is it possible or feasible?
Okay. The
Because
possibility.
to be free from desire, should not get attached to sense objects, and these are all to be practiced every day. And I mean, how it is something which is what do you call very beyond the common people.
Okay, so I think Janki Ramji's question is it practical for a lay person in everyday experience? Is that right? Now, the first in the very shloka, it says one must only. This is applicable only to a mukshu. That means the one who has intense desire for liberation. So till then, even Nisargadatta Maharaj says, if you are happy with the world, go ahead and live in the world. There is no problem with living in the world as long as there is no problem with it. Now, I can't go ahead and say, take away all the desires, it's bad for you, to another person. It must come from within each individual to say that I want to get out of this limitation. That's the first step to spirituality. In the meanwhile, keep doing what things we are doing, but try to increase the awareness. Now, if the person is not interested in liberation, there's no point in talking to him about attachment to desires and detachment to desire, detachment from desires. On the other hand, if a person is really fed up with the ups and downs of life, if he is enjoying the ups and downs of life as a thrill, then that's okay. Let that continue. There will come a time when that will saturate for that person, and he will say, enough, this is enough. I want something more than what I have got here through this experiences of life. So,
Clear. Thank you.
yeah. Anyone else?
Is it? See, I believe we cannot be completely zero on desires. I think it is the clingingness which needs to go.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah, the
desires will be
attachment to
there.
the desires, attachment to the desire. No,
Yeah.
desire itself is attachment. Attachment to the object. Objects are not a problem. Thoughts are not a problem, but the attachment, desire fundamentally means an attachment to the object or a thought or an idea. So that is what has to be overcome. So
Shall I say,
nobody,
when we have the contentment or self-satisfaction, I think we can control our desires.
no. It's not a question of control. I think Prashant's question is different. Is it difficult? Is it, it's, um, is it, can you repeat your question, Prashant?
See, I was saying that. See, for example, if I'm feeling thirsty, I'll have water. If I'm feeling hungry, I'll have food. So these are there anyways. But the clingingness to something, like, if I want a particular payasam, and if I'm craving for it, so that craving, that clingingness, that kind of desire is what I believe,
Yeah.
that we should
Yeah.
be.
That is the attachment that we are talking of. The whole thing, see, no, the Vedanta does not say don't live in the world. In fact, it is for people who live in the world. It's a way to live in the world in a continuously joyous manner. Therefore, desire means attachment, nothing but the attachment. Nobody says you don't enjoy the car that you have. But suppose the car is not there today, will I not go out or am I over dependent on it? Similarly, detachment from money is not about ignoring money. It is about not being attached to the money, still taking, you can experience your wealth in the framework of dharma.
Yes, yeah, correct, yeah.
Right? So desire means attachment in this case. Otherwise, thoughts come, go, objects are there, thoughts are there. They are function as long as they are functional in nature, including the wealth, including this body. When we say I am not the body, it doesn't mean body is false. It means the body is functional. It can be used for being functional. That means to accomplish certain work, the physical energies are required, and to keep focus, mental energies are required. So when I say I'm not the body, mind, intellect, the intellect is required to take certain decisions with clarity. When we say I'm not the body, mind, intellect, it doesn't mean body doesn't exist. It means it is functional, it is a tool that is available. And we should not be clinging on to it. Which means if something happens to the body, do I feel it is happening to me? Then I am attached to the body. If something is happening to the mind, I'm agitated. Do I feel I am agitated? We usually say that because the real I is identified with the body and mind. So that identification must stop. That's what Vedanta and Upanishad is trying to hit at. Now, the journey to it is gradual in terms of karma, bhakti, kriya, and jnana. When we deal with instruments that have inertia, the body has its inertia, so you have to gradually take it forward. The mind has its inertia, so you have to gradually take it to a higher level of consciousness by constant practice. The intellect also has its inertia, its own tendencies, so you have to take it. So in the realm of prakriti or nature, body, mind, intellect is a part of nature. There is time and space involved, so there is progression involved. But really, from the point of view of consciousness, everything is consciousness. Therefore, to realize I am consciousness, how much time is required? Nothing is required. When I am consciousness, there is no time involved to realize I am consciousness. But there is time and effort involved to overcome my past tendencies. Unfortunately, until and unless I overcome my past tendencies, real knowledge that I am consciousness will not be established. Right? So we need not really worry that this is not practical. At the place where we are in today in our life, we can continue our life, but with one thought: what is the reality of this experience or this situation? Is it real or is it mithya? Is it satya or mithya? And then slowly, gradually work on it. That means with constant practice, when the mind actually renounces the sense objects and the mind rests in the heart. Heart is the hridi, the point where which the single thought arises. I thought arises. When the mind rests there, that is the supreme abode. Now, there were questions. How long, whether it has to be, whether this is possible for normal people or not. First thing is, the intense desire to be free must come from each individual, from his inner being. That urge must come from within. Now, even after it has come, doubts will arise whether it is possible for me or not. It is possible, says Patanjali and Krishna in their Yoga Sutra and Gita, by two techniques, Abhyasa and Vairagya. Both are to go hand in hand. Abhyasa is practice. Now, Abhyasa, Patanjali has a very interesting definition for Abhyasa. The practice of the practice to actually the practice of chitta vritti nirodha, to subdue the oscillations of the mind, that comes by regular practice, by use of pranayama or asana or any of these techniques. But he says another thing. How long should that be practiced? Patanjali says, when he has been established, when the practitioner of yoga has been established in the silence of the mind, in that state of chitta vritti nirodha, till then practice must continue. Now, this very same thing, this Upanishad, Amritabindu Upanishad is saying, how long should you restrain the mind from attachment to desires? As long as it takes to get itself dissolved in the heart. Then that is real meditation. That is real knowledge. That means when the mind dissolves completely in the heart, that means mind and mind doesn't exist, only the self exists. That is real knowledge. That is real meditation. The rest of it, the Upanishad says, is a mere play of words. Tadeva nirodhavyam yavaddadi gatam kshayam. Etad jnanam cha dhyanam cha shesho nyayascha vistaraha. Everything else, shesho, everything else, nyaya is just logic, vistaraha, a play of words. Everything else is a logic and play of words. What is meditation? What is jnana? What is wisdom? When the mind gets established in the heart, it gets centered and completely dissolved in the heart or the self. What is the heart in this case? The cavity from where the first thought, the I thought, arises. The root of the springing up of the mind. So when the mind springs up, when the mind goes back to its own source, it is nothing but the self. So practicing, repeated practice, how long should I practice? For 1 year, 2 years, 5 years? There is no time limit. There is no specific time. It depends on the tendency of the mind and the body, the past tendencies of the mind and the body, how much time it takes to overcome those tendencies. So there is one yardstick, one pointer that is popularly known as fire to indicate the progress. So the frequency of disturbance, F stands for frequency. If the frequency of disturbance comes down, when the mind has realized, when the mind is cool and calm, suddenly it will get disturbed because it comes in contact with the external situation. After meditation, the effect may stay for half an hour, 1 hour. Afterwards, the mind will get disturbed and go back to its old ways. Now, if the frequency of disturbance comes down, it is less frequent than before, that means your practice has borne fruit. It is effective. I is intensity. If the intensity of our disturbance has come down with practice, then we are in good stead. Then recovery, RE is recovery. Recovery time, that means from the disturbance, if that has reduced, then the practice is effective. So continue to practice so that all of these frequency, intensity, and recovery time keeps on reducing, and finally a point will come when the mind is merged with the self. There are techniques that Amritabindu Upanishad says how to use for sadhana to establish the mind in its true nature, in its original state, which is the self. That we will take up next time when time permits, when an opportunity comes. In summary, I would just like to say a few things that we have discussed here. First is, the mind, in spite of all its classifications, is of only two types. One is a pure mind and an impure mind. The pure mind is that which is unattached to desires. An impure mind is that which is attached to any sense object or desires. Now, by this definition, the mind can either be a cause for suffering or a tool for liberation. Now, the mind that is attached to sense objects is a cause for suffering. That which is detached, unattached to the from the sense objects is a tool for liberation. It itself becomes liberated when it detaches from the sense objects. Now, this is an experience. This experience, the sage is saying, is not enough. The mumukshu, or the one who has a desire for permanent liberation, must continue to practice unattachment from sense objects regularly. Till what time? Till the mind has established in the heart. It is merged in the heart. So these are simple things that are related to the qualities of the mind and its nature and its behavior, and how to use the mind for sadhana. So these are the things that we have discussed. Sarve janaah sukhino bhavantu. Lokaah samastaah sukhino bhavantu. Om Tat Sat Brahmarpanamastu. Om Sadguru Devaya Namaha. Thank you very much for your patient listening.